Hello, Loveland. I'm Mike Meldon, and this is your Loveland Weekly Podcast. Brought to you by Gina Dubell-Smith, eXp Realty, and Stone Pillar Farm. As I mentioned on our last podcast, I've been trying to get a new endeavor going for a little bit, but I had a small hiccup. But now, all is well. We can move forward with what we are calling the Loveland AllSports Pod. Our new podcast will focus on all sports of Loveland, from game results to player interviews to real discussions that get to the heart of our sports community. You will find it all here. The podcast will be found on the same stream as the Loveland Weekly Podcast, but when it's posted, it will be listed as its own Loveland AllSports Pod. So no need to follow a new podcast on your directories, whether it's Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, whatever. It will be there if you already follow the Loveland Weekly Podcast. But if you don't, make sure you hit that plus button, that follow button, so it gives you alerts whenever a new episode pops up, and you won't miss one. Now, the Loveland All Sports Pod will also have a separate Facebook page that you can visit, and we hope that it will become a local hub for all the teams of the different sports in Loveland to post their schedules, their events, their news, whatever it may be. So please be sure to follow that page also. Currently, the page is called the Loveland Sports Guide, but you will be able to see its new name soon. But none of this could be possible if it weren't for the man that will be hosting this new endeavor. Mr. Josh DeWitt stepped up to take on this role and bring Loveland into a new era of covering sports here locally. I'm sure many of you are familiar with Josh and know that he is the perfect man for this job. We are very excited to have him, and today you'll get to hear my conversation with Josh so that we can all get to know him a little bit better before the debut of his first episode, hopefully within the next week. Exciting times here at the Loveland Weekly Podcast, and we hope that you will continue to listen and also take part of our local sports community conversations. And now, here's my conversation with the new Loveland All Sports Pod host, Josh DeWitt.
Yeah, well, when thinking about this opportunity, I think about, I'm 52 years old. Sports has been a part of my life every day, every week, every year that I can remember. Not only from playing sports, but also coaching sports, but then more importantly in my career, the competitiveness, the getting up early, the discipline, the practice. I mean, I've been in sales for almost 30 years of my career. I've led teams of people at different times in my career, and sports even gave me that mental and drive to build a team. I always say if you had Phil Jackson had 10 Michael Jordans, they wouldn't have been as successful. But they had to have one Michael Jordan, one Scottie Pippen. They even had a Scott Kerr and a Horace Grant, and even some other guys we don't even know. And that's what built a good team. And that's what I've emulated, building good sales teams over my career. But, it goes back to playing. I mean, I just have a passion for it. I mean, I grew up playing anything with a ball, focused on football, basketball, and baseball when I was a little kid. Grew up in Dayton, Ohio until I was 10, and then moved here to Cincinnati in fourth grade, and that's when things really took off, when I got to be about that age of 10 years old. And all three sports were really important to me. Did well, played football through high school, played baseball through high school, gave up basketball when I started getting wider, started getting thicker. Height was in my family, and I was this big in 8th grade. And then my dad was 6'6". My dad is 6'6", uncle 6'9", another uncle 6'10", and aunt 6'1". And I stopped at 6'3 and a half, 6'4", in 8th grade. So I started getting wider. So football became my passion, and had a really good high school career with that. Played 3 years on varsity. I'm actually in the Sycamore Hall of Fame, which is pretty cool. Was inducted into that 10 years ago or so, maybe 15 now, I guess. But also did a round of track, And then growing up, I think about, I was the big guy that even played tennis. So I was out there, not competitively, but on recreational type stuff. And
you doing pickleball now or no?
Pickleball now,
Good.
But grew up in a condo complex where we had tennis courts, and all of us guys would go play and mess around. So that was pretty cool. It led me to an opportunity. I had numerous scholarship offers to play Division I football, and I had two goals. One was to go to business school, and two was I wanted to play in the Big Ten. And settled on Indiana University. And a lot of people, especially living in Cincinnati and Bearcat and Buckeye country, it's tough being the only Hoosier football fan in Loveland or in Cincinnati. There's a couple of them. I found them out there. But really what made it unique was my high school coach, who was like a second father to me. He coached me up and, do you want to play or do you want to be part of a team? And my final two, I had choices all over the country. My final two were Michigan and Indiana. Where did I want to play? I wanted to play at Ohio State. Grew up in Dayton and Cincinnati. Where do you want to be a lineman and play? You want to play at Ohio State. Got recruited by them. Got to go up on a visit. I'll never forget being there for a visit and whatnot. And it was a great opportunity. But at the end of the day, John Cooper didn't offer me a scholarship. And they only took two linemen my senior year. And I knew both of them. But then when it came down to Michigan and Indiana, it was about, do you want to play or do you want to be part of a bigger, successful program? So went to Indiana, and I have zero regrets. I got 3 awesome bowl rings. I got to letter for 3 years. Started for 1 year as a center with Trent Green, who had a pretty successful quarterback career in the NFL. I was his center his senior year. And then long snapped on punts and field goals. That was pretty cool because I got to be a team captain too. I was a special teams captain. I started only 1 year at center, but because I long snapped, I was able to letter for 3 years. And it's funny. I meet guys that went to Michigan or went to Ohio State that weren't the top guys, and they all wish they would have went to an Indiana because they could have played. I sit there and I got my Peach Bowl and my Copper Bowl and my Independence Bowl rings, and these guys have got Fiesta Bowl rings and Sugar Bowl rings, but they didn't play, So I learned a lot, but the coolest thing about it's the relationships that I built. I mean, I've got brothers for life. I've got guys that come to my kids' graduations. They come to the hospital when we have babies. We go on road trips together, and you might not talk to a guy for a year, but you just don't skip a beat when you got a brotherhood like that we built. So yeah, it's pretty neat.
So now you're in Loveland. You're done with football. What happens after that? You graduated from IU.
Yeah, I graduated from IU, and I have a younger brother who's 17 years younger than me. And so that gave me an opportunity to start coaching him in my 20s. My last year of college football was his first year of organized soccer. So my mom basically had 2 boys back to back. And so when he got to be of age, I was living back in Cincinnati, and I got to coach him a little bit. And then that led to, I'll never forget when I have 3 children, Zoe, Zach, and Charlie. Zoe's our oldest, and she wanted to play soccer at whatever, that 4 or 5 year old age. And we're up there at Phillips Park, and I take her up there, and I'm excited for my first kid to be doing something sports oriented. And the coach was just herding cats for an hour. I mean, he was walking around there. He was very skilled at I could tell he was doing a lot of footwork with the ball. I don't even know what the soccer nomenclature is, but he's doing a lot of work. And at the end of the practice, he said, guys, gals, as you can tell, this is very difficult, and I'll look for an assistant. And I went up and said, my name's Josh. I know nothing about soccer, but I'm very coachable. So my very first experience at coaching my kids was at 4-year-old soccer. And then that morphed into quite a few things with her. And then her brother is just a year and a half younger. So here came his sports going on. And then we have a third child, Charlie, who is a freshman at Loveland High School right now. And so between my brother and the 3 kids, I'm in my 55th season of coaching youth sports. I helped run Loveland baseball for a bit. I volunteered above and beyond with both basketball and with football. But coached 10 years at LYF. Can't even tell you how many years of baseball, and then even basketball. Probably being this meathead lineman football kind of guy, my favorite thing in the world was coaching girls travel basketball. It was wild because, number one, you tell the girls once and they do it. You tell the boys 7 times, 7 different ways. The girls, and then you learned also a lot about what girls are going through in their 11, 10, 12-year-old ages and the puberty. And sometimes you would yell at a girl and she would lose it. And, I can grab a boy's face mask and tell him to do something and make him get in the dirt and do up, downs, and run. And you do that to a girl, you have to have a total different set of patience. But coaching girls sports was awesome. In Loveland, I'm very proud of the especially my older son. They each have 2 Loveland football teams at the youth level at every age. Back when football was a little more popular and there wasn't so many other challenges and the concussion scares and things like that. But we had a team that was 0-8, and the other team was 8-0. Oh, wow. And the second year we went 1-6, 1-7, and they went 7-1. Wow. The third year we went like 3 and whatever, they went whatever and 3. And then you wake up and they're in 6th grade and we went like 5-5 and they went like 7-3, and they came together in 7th grade. And, I'm an offensive line coach, offensive line guy, and I think 5 of the 6 linemen on that 7th grade team were my boys. And then in 8th grade, they went 8-0 and won the ECC. And then those guys went on to, some of the guys left the program, and we'll talk about that throughout the future of this podcast at a later date. But some of those kids stuck it out at Loveland, and they built the foundation for, something else we'll talk about in future podcasts is the state championship year we had here and the effects of that. And that's something it's really unique to think about how that impacted Loveland football. But this group that's been here the last 5 years has really done a good job of bringing that culture back. And I'd like to say that those boys that were part of those LYF teams are a big reason why the culture is so positive at Loveland right now in today's day and age. Can't forget my wife. Let's talk about her a little bit. Meredith DeWitt is, she grew up in a household of basketball freaks, UC basketball freaks. She went to, I can't tell you how many UC Bearcat games, and her grandfather, uncle, and dad owned a restaurant on the west side called Schuler's Wigwam for 78 years. And you know them, the Oak Hills, didn't you? And the UC Bearcats had years and years of their banquets at Schuler's Wigwam. So my wife grew up knowing all the stud basketball players at UC. I mean, you name it, Van Exel, Long, all those guys. They were family to them. Meredith was not allowed to eat dinner until she could spell Krzyzewski correctly. So her dad, back in the late 80s, early 90s, he would quiz his kids and he'd make them spell unique coaches' names before they could touch their plate. So she's a basketball girl, loves watching it, and that she helped run Loveland youth basketball here for about 6 or 7 years, and was the president at one point, and that led her to her current position where she is Loveland Athletic Boosters president, which is a 7 through 12 program. They've done some great things for the community and for the schools and for the kids. That'll be a topic in itself when we do our future podcasts. Been proud to have been part of, for 3 years, Meredith and I were the chair couple that ran the Loveland Tiger Ball. And then we've been involved in that for probably about the last 6 or 7 years. So, that's my career, and you think about 55 seasons of youth sports coaching, you think about the administrative stuff, the communication, every single day in either my sales job or in coaching something, it's always, it comes down to the same philosophies that coaches taught me years ago.
What do you, now that we're moving forward with your podcast, how do you invite people to have conversations?
Yeah, the easiest ways to contact me, email is joshdwitt58@gmail.com, joshdwitt58@gmail.com. I want to make this podcast bring value to what the community wants to hear. I don't want to talk about the Reds and the Bengals as much because there's professionals that are paid very well to talk about that. I want this community to hear the updates, but also have a forum where they can provide an opinion and maybe bring a solution to improving what we've got. We have so many great things in this community with the youth programs, the middle school programs, the boosters, the varsity programs. And it's not always about win in state. You know, we've had in 17 the girls won state, and 13 the boys won football won state. It's not always about the wins and losses. And the thing that Loveland does a great job of is turning your child into an adult. I always say turning boys to men, turning girls into women. And when they can look back on those things, that's what I want to focus on. I want it to be a forum for the youth programs to get out why they do what they do. And I also wanted to, I don't want to say controversy, I want to have some assertive,
real conversations about what's going on.
Some real conversations about what's going on.
Yeah.
You know, like you think about youth baseball and the diversity between rec and travel. Yep. And then you take into fact pitch counts. What's safe for a boy to pitch or a girl to pitch in softball? The concussion. Why are football numbers so low? Let's have some open conversations about that as a community to help educate you on what is the best thing that you can do for your child.
These are conversations that parents on the sideline are probably having, but the greater public doesn't know that they exist. And, you know, for me, when you have younger kids moving up, these are things people want to know about. Right. You know, and say, oh, wow, I had no idea. And we can get it out there now. Yeah. Yeah.
I sit and I watch, especially because I've had 2 older kids already go through the program. And then I have a freshman or rising freshman now. He's going to be a sophomore, whatever that vocabulary, that title is. I've had numerous kids that now I sit around the fire pit and have a beer with because they're older now, and they tell me, they still call me coach, which is one of the coolest things in the world when they're a 22-year-old kid and they're still calling you coach. And they sit there and tell you, I'm so mad I gave up football in 9th grade. Why'd you quit? And then we talk about it. Right. And I ask them why. And in our community, in our society today, with social media, with expectations, with the focus on youth sports, being a contributor at the varsity level is not a bad thing. And I think a lot of moms and dads think they better be a starter, or they better go to this school, or they better do this. They're going to get money in college. I'm telling you what, we'll talk about this at length. The transfer portal and NIL, you better be an absolute freaking stud that has the size, number one, and the speed and the ability to get a chance to get money in college.
Right.
And too many parents decide in 3rd grade that my kid's deciding between Alabama or Ohio State.
Yes, we're going to pay whatever it takes, and that's not paying.
It's not. Show me
You're not going
to
pay the way to get there. Exactly.
Show me where it is.
Right.
I've been in this, you know, I fortunately went through the recruiting process and was very happy with it. My brother, he went through the recruiting process. He played college football. The game has changed, number one, but also I know what it takes to do this. And that leads to something else that's important to me too, is, you know, my middle son, Zach, he's playing college football at the Division II level. He's at Findlay right now, getting ready to get into his 4th year. Very successful program. He's doing well up there. Not playing a lot, but the degree, he's getting a double major, finance econ with a 3.5 GPA, very happy group of friends. He's turning into a man.
Yeah.
And it's like,
he's learning those lessons you were talking about.
He's learning those lessons.
Yeah.
And playing a college sport is not for everyone, but that gives a discipline of what kids can do. And you can go play at the D3 level or the NAI level, and if it's setting you up for success for the rest of your life, what's the problem, Mom? Maybe they're not at Alabama, maybe they're not at Georgia, but they're set up to be very successful, and they can attribute to that to the sport that they play in college.
Hello, Loveland. It's Emily Barlow, your local publisher of Loveland Lifestyle Magazine. It's a great time of year. So many amazing things are happening in Loveland. It's warm, it's sunny, and there's really no better place to be. And we at Loveland Lifestyle love covering all of the happenings. In addition to any new businesses opening, awesome new ventures that people are focusing on. We love covering everything Loveland, and we love partnering with new businesses. So if you're a new business and you've been thinking about working with Loveland Lifestyle, or maybe you're someone who would love to get a copy, but it's not delivered directly to your door, you can always reach out to us through our website, citylifestyle.com/Loveland. We'd love to hear from you.
Looking ahead in Loveland, Trailside Tunes, Chris Lee Acoustic, live music along the bike trail. Chris Lee Acoustic will perform on Saturday, June 15th from 1 to 3 p.m. at the Gazebo in Nisbet Park. And if you have any events that you would like me to mention here on the podcast, please reach out at lovelandweekly@gmail.com. We have something truly special here in Loveland. Thank you for listening, and have a great week. This episode was produced and engineered by Mike Meldon right here in Loveland. And please note that the opinions expressed in the podcast do not necessarily represent the views of our sponsors or organization.